Ever watched a show about high schoolers that left you questioning what their tax form that year looked like? Yeah, us too. TV and movie star teens went from looking prom ready to 10-year high school reunion ready. Let's talk about what Hollywood has done to the concept of growing up and what it means to look like a teenager. There has been a recent surge of children looking older and older that has become increasingly prevalent through entertainment media. There have been jokes about celebrities looking a certain way at a certain age versus how normal people look at that age that have been circulating for years. But now it seems as though kids skip the awkward middle school phase altogether. Now, why is that? There are a variety of reasons ranging from accessibility to makeup and clothing to the ever-changing fashion trends, but we will delve into one specific reason: the overuse of adults playing teenagers on television and films. This is not necessarily a new concept in cinema, but as child laws have become harsher and films have become raunchier, it seems to be much more prevalent now. Looking back at old shows such as Full House, Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, and The Brady Bunch, the ages of the cast members were much closer to their characters. Now, shows such as Euphoria, Outer Banks, and Pretty Little Liars create an incredibly unrealistic depictions of what a teenager should look and act like. The use of adult actors in movies and television is incredibly harmful for teenagers psychologically and physiologically. This is not a new phenomenon. Most of us have probably seen the BuzzFeed articles pointing out how many of our favorite teen characters are actually played by adults. From Mean Girls and Clueless to Booksmart, movies have been portraying adults as high school-aged characters for decades. Perhaps more importantly, the age gap between the actors and the characters isn't always as small as a few years. According to Vice, Joss Whedon's iconic supernatural show, Buffy the Vampire Slayer, had an average actor-to-character age gap of 8.25 years. Glee is guilty of an average difference of 8 years.
Realized for you to invite me for coffee before you beat me up for spying.
With shows like Gilmore Girls and The OC coming in at 6.8 and 6.25 respectively. It's overwhelmingly common for actors playing teens to range throughout their 20s. Actors Zendaya, Sydney Sweeney, and Jacob Elordi, among others playing older teenagers in Euphoria, range from 20 to 24 during the first season.
I look so sexy pregnant.
Actors who look much younger than they are. In Euphoria, none of the actors could pass for a high school senior. One of the biggest issues with how teens are portrayed in film and TV is that they rarely look like real teenagers. That's because they often aren't. They're adults, sometimes 5 to 10 years older than the characters they're playing, with fully developed bodies, facial bones, and features that most teens haven't grown into yet. And that's not just a guess. The research backs it up. In a major population-based study from Denmark called Timing of Puberty in Boys and Girls by Nis Brix and colleagues, girls didn't hit full breast maturity until around 15.8 years old, and boys didn't reach full genital development until about 15.6 years old. Meanwhile, voice breaking in boys happened at about 13.1 years, and menarche, or first period in girls, happened at 13. Those ages are normal, but on screen, you often see fully developed 22-year-olds playing 15-year-olds, with no signs of transition at all. That disconnect matters because puberty doesn't happen all at once, and it doesn't happen the same way for everyone. In a massive German study called Assessment of Developmental Age, Cross-Sectional Analysis of Secondary Sexual Characteristics by Holly Grail and Heidrun Kahl, researchers analyzed over 17,000 kids and found that developmental tempo varies dramatically, even within the same age. Early developing girls, especially those with stockier, more fat-rich body types called picromorphic, often reach early breast development by 10 years, while leaner leptomorphic girls might not start until 13. That's a full 3-year difference in when puberty visibly starts, all completely normal, all within the same age group. But when Hollywood uses the same type over and over, kids with different body shapes are left feeling off schedule. Facial development is another area where biology and casting clash. In the article Craniofacial Growth, Maturation, and Change, Teens to Mid-Adulthood, Ross and Williams 2010, Researchers showed that while head growth slows early, subtle shaping of the facial bones, the jawline, cheekbones, and nose continues well into the early 20s. That means the grown-up look you see in actors playing high schoolers often isn't even possible for most teens.
That's really interesting.
And let's talk about skin. The Danish study also found that acne shows up around 11.4 years in girls and 12.3 in boys, and it is an expected part of puberty. But on the screen, teen characters usually have flawless skin, giving a false sense that acne is just something weird or shameful. In reality, about 85% of teens experience acne at some point. So kids are being shown an impossible standard: clear skin, perfect jawlines, full breasts or muscles, all while they're still years away from finishing puberty themselves. In fact, the entire visible process of puberty, from early signs like breast buds and voice changes to full maturity, took between 4 and 5 years on average. That's a long span of development. But in media, it's skipped completely. And that creates problems. When real kids see these fully formed versions of their, quote, peers, it sets them up to feel behind, physically, socially, and emotionally. The portrayals of teenagers by significantly older actors also comes with the psychological impacts on the teen audiences of these TV shows and movies. For the teenage viewer, seeing more developed bodies and mature personalities that are labeled to be, quote, teens is confusing and harmful to their mental health and self-esteem. Dr. Barbara Greenberg, a clinical psychologist and teen and family expert, says casting actors in their 20s can, quote, complicate an already challenging time for teens. It can give the message that they're supposed to look good all the time, quote, she told Teen Vogue. She then goes on to talk about the normal inconsistency of adolescent appearance and compares it to the consistent appearances of those in their 20s or 30s. For teen viewers, this can make them feel self-conscious and even depressed about their self-image, leading to chronic comparison. Specifically in female teen audiences, these girls are being shown an image of perfection from an early age, and when they get older, they also receive an inaccurate representation of what a woman should look like. This issue goes even further with the over-sexualization of teenagers, which also has major psychological impact on young viewers. In a journal article titled, "I Can/Should Look Like a Media Figure," issues surrounding mass media and its idealization of attractiveness and sexualization is analyzed for its effects on children and teenagers. This issue is only perpetuated by these roles played by older actors. The casting of older actors allows for the normalization of these adult themes, such as hypersexualized behavior, in contexts that are supposed to be representative of teenage life. This blurs the line between childhood and adulthood, pushing teenagers to engage in behaviors to make them look older, or even try to act older. Such behaviors have been shown to negatively affect adolescent development.
My name is Nami Amramokri, and I'm going to be talking about the depiction of teenagers in movies and how it affects our sense of self. Have you ever wondered why actors that play teenagers look nothing like normal teenagers? And the short answer is Hollywood likes to glamorize teens. The problem with this is that most teenagers don't look like 20-year-old models with ideal figures and perfectly clear skin. The problem is that they're creating these standards that are so far-fetched that they're just creating more insecurities for young growing teens. Project X, where 3 friends go out drinking and also partying, which hosts a party and attracts thousands of teenagers to come. And lastly, your very own George Heffley from Diary of a Wimpy Kid, drinking Coca-Cola in a high school party. As you can see, teenagers are always depicted as the ones drinking, partying, and smoking. It was during an online survey by the Mental Health Organization where they found 40% of teenagers suffered from body image issues constantly because of social media. According to Lisa Horowitz, a brain psychologist in the National Institute of Mental Health, she said the data proves that teenagers are particularly vulnerable to the media.
Mentioned previously, this issue targets mostly young women, and repeated exposure to an unattainable ideal decreases women's body satisfaction because they are unable to comply with an ideal they have come to see as normative.
It's a 5.
Another example is a quote from an article titled, "To the casting directors of Euphoria and other teen shows, grow up," where Annette Hansis wrote, "I've always had a good deal of confidence in how I look. But it was hard not to wonder whether maybe what I was seeing on screen was how I was supposed to look, or whether it was how I was supposed to have looked 2 years prior, putting me even further behind. This is a common sentiment. We sent out a survey to teenagers aged 15 to 19 and asked them questions regarding how the media affected their self-esteem. These were our results.
When we asked these teenagers, have you ever felt insecure or compared yourself to teen characters in movies or shows, 53.5% said occasionally, and 16.3% said very often. When we said, do you think the appearance of older actors playing teens contributes to unrealistic beauty standards for actual teens, 53.5% said somewhat agree, and 39.5% said strongly agree. When we asked them, do you think teens feel the need to wear more makeup because of the teens they see in TV shows and movies, 41.9% said yes, and 53.5% said somewhat or maybe. This leads us to our next point. The growth of the recent Sephora Kids phenomenon is a prime example of how entertainment media's portrayal of teenagers is becoming increasingly unrealistic and harmful. Young children, particularly preteen girls, are growing obsessed with beauty products and skincare routines that are not so clearly, to them, meant for adults.
Media today, especially flawless filters and the popular, glamorous teenagers depicted in movies and shows, promote an unrealistic and naturally unattainable image of beauty that binds perfection to worth. These ideals distort young viewers' perceived freedom to be unique and rush them to grow up, replacing play and self-discovery with concealers and anti-aging serums. As a result, children begin internalizing adult beauty standards far too early, manipulating their self-esteem and distorting their body image before they even get a chance to develop naturally. This phenomenon is growing not to be just a marketing issue, but a deeper psychological concern for young girls around the world. Childhood itself is being commodified, and the pressure to meet curated beauty standards is peaking way too early. One of the ramifications of adult actors playing teens is that plastic surgery has become incredibly prevalent and accessible. According to the American Society of Plastic Surgeons, more than 76,000 cosmetic surgical procedures were performed on teens ages 13 to 19 in 2011. In comparison, in 2020, teens accounted for 230,000 cosmetic surgeries. Of these, breast augmentation and reduction surgeries tend to be the most popular.
What did you get done with Dr. Martin?
I got a rhinoplasty done. I just didn't really like the shape of my nose and I didn't really feel confident in it, so I wanted to make a change.
There has been an increase in the number of teens seeking out surgical procedures to enhance or completely modify their features.
5 years since I've had my nose job at 17 years old, and I'm going to talk about this.
The National Library of Medicine notes that exposure to cosmetically enhanced photos through social media can increase an individual's desire to undergo plastic surgery. People idolize celebrities. They always have. They put them on a pedestal and try to replicate what they do. They are beautiful naturally, which can create harmful self-image issues on their fan base. But the overuse of cosmetic procedures adds an additional layer. The National Center for Health Research describes how the standards for beauty continue to rise, and teens often feel they are falling behind. These celebrities are constantly in the limelight through films and social media, and they create unrealistic beauty standards that have harmful implications for teens. Teenage years are primitive for emotional and mental development, and constantly seeking examples of picturesque and perfect celebrities is incredibly damaging to their psyche. These unrealistic portrayals solidify the idea that teens look, quote, wrong because they look natural. One of the biggest issues with this is the justification why they need plastic surgery and the effects afterward. Several studies have shown that the suicide rate among breast augmentation patients is 2 to 3 times higher than that of the general population, though the cause of this is unclear. One study found that women who underwent breast augmentation had a more extensive history of preoperative psychiatric hospitalizations than patients who underwent other forms of plastic surgery. In any case, these findings highlight the importance of scanning teens and adolescents for any mental health disorders before surgery. Some may argue that the films we have mentioned contain themes far too mature for teenagers to play the characters on television. For example, in Euphoria, there are themes of sexual abuse, substance overuse, and violence. These are topics that adults would struggle with portraying, not to mention teenagers. Zendaya even said in an interview with Teen Vogue that she is quite an empathetic person, and what she often does takes on a lot of other people's pain and a lot of other people's stress and fears and anxieties, as well as her own. This emphasizes how gruesome portraying some of these characters would be on teenagers, who are already dealing with a plethora of stress and anxiety while they're developing. While these claims are legitimate and no teenager should be exposed to traumatizing tropes, this argument leads to a larger point regarding the over-sexualization of teenagers and how it is, quote, okay to constantly portray minors in sexual and graphic contexts because adults are playing them.
I thought everything was good between us.
It was. Before I found out you had sex with my boyfriend.
Think of any popular young adult show in the past 10 years involving teenagers. I, for one, cannot think of a single example in which the characters do not engage in some sexual act. While not inherently wrong, these shows profit off of sexualizing their teenage characters who are played by adults. The issue with this is apparent. According to RAINN, the world's largest anti-sexual violence organization, 1 in 9 girls and 1 in 20 boys under the age of 20 experience sexual violence, either at the hands of teenagers or adolescents. This statistic is incredibly jarring and unsettling, especially knowing that children are facing sexual abuse and producers are profiting off of showcasing minors engaging in sexual acts. Another ramification of this is adults viewing youth as sexual and beautiful. An interesting graph by Business Insider in 2014 shows the age that men and women find most attractive by age. As you can see, the women's side of the graph goes in a downward sloping linear direction, indicating that women tend to be desirable to men near their age, while men choose 18, the youngest available. This is important, as it can help to explain the facts regarding sexual violence enacted upon minors. If men see youth as inherently attractive and accessible, as made possible by porn and entertainment media, then that means that more will desire younger people, placing them at risk for sexual abuse. At the end of the day, or shall we say the end of the script, it's not just about who's playing on screen. It's about the impact those portrayals have off screen. Casting adults as teens may seem harmless, but it's setting a standard that teens physically can't and shouldn't have to live up to. So the next time you watch teen-inspired media, remember that awkwardness, acne, and normal bodies are all a part of the beauty of growing up, and that's the way it should be.